The subject of this talk is awareness after death, knowledge after death. What happens at the time of death? Do you all of a sudden know what the whole of life was about? Do you know what death is about? Do you have a greater awareness, greater knowledge? When they leave the body, they will not necessarily have a greater awareness or knowledge of life and of the afterlife. It comes as a big shock to a lot of people, because many people have this perception that at the time of death they will suddenly realize all that they need to realize. This idea that you will go to heaven, that somehow magically you will automatically just move into this enlightened state of consciousness in which you know everything. Regardless of what your life has been like, regardless of how maybe unconscious a being has been in their life, that somehow they will then just, leaving the body, come into an all-knowing awareness of life, death, and beyond. And it is not true. And it is only compassionate to say that it is not true. Because if people are lulled into that false knowledge, then it means that they often overlook this life and what they do in this life. Because it doesn't really matter. It doesn't matter really what happens in this life, because when you die, all will be revealed. And you will be this luminous being of light that is enlightened. You will go to heaven or some nice place. But this is to kid oneself. This is not the way it works, because everything is a continuation. Everything is a continuation. What you call the afterlife is really just a continuation of this. These are different dimensions, different frequencies. Even after the death of the body, there is still the energy body, the soul, this seeming individuation. And the soul is not the end point. This is another misconception. The soul is not the end point. The end point is to return back to the infinite, which the soul must do. The soul must return back to the infinite. It is not only myself that is saying this. This is what all the religions have said in many different ways. There is a lot of testimony of people having near-death experiences where what happens is that they just get their conditioned ideas reconfirmed to them. What I mean by that is that if somebody is a really strong Christian, then they have a near-death experience that is Christian in nature. Somebody else has one that is Muslim. Someone else has one that is Buddhist, and so on. What this is showing is that the experiences that are had are based upon the mind, what is in the mind, the content of the mind, the conditioning, the programming of the mind. Young children, when they have near-death experiences, they see their favorite cartoon characters. So it's like a mirror. It is like a mirror. But when a being is not aware that it is a mirror, then their mind creates what they see. And this creation is usually an unconscious process for the majority of beings on the planet, because they have not awoken, they have not self-realized to their true nature, and so they are not conscious. They are identified with their mind. And the mind continues after death. After the death of the physical body, the mind continues on. So the content of the mind, the conditioning, the programming of the mind, the belief systems, the level of awareness will be the same when the body has dropped. So if a being really wants to use this life well, it is about becoming aware and conscious and realizing one's true nature here, not waiting, thinking that it's going to be gifted to you on a silver platter when you leave the body. That would be a mistake to do that. That's what leads to compulsive reincarnation, forced reincarnation, forced by your own energy, forced by your own unconsciousness, forced by your own mind, pulls you back in, sucks you back in, keeps you in a loop in the Groundhog Day. That's the karmic cycle. It's a momentum. It's a momentum. And all the religions have been talking about this in some way or another. And what he said is that the soul, when it incarnates into a physical body, there's a rubbing off of whatever it gets identified with in that life, what it takes on. So it incurs new karma. It has the previous karma that it got identified with, the memory, the software at the soul level that then gets passed on into the next incarnation to pick up where it left off. But then it incurs new karma if it gets identified with what is happening in this life. And so the only way out of this cycle is to realize your true identity. Or you could say to go beyond all limited identity, to realize what you really are, to directly experience that, to see that clearly, to be in no doubt about that, to be able to live as that. This is what they call a Jivan Mukti. To live as an enlightened being, to be free whilst here, to know who you are, from the source to the surface, from the conscious, the subconscious, unconscious, superconscious, to know who you are from all those levels. Only when you know yourself can you accept yourself. And then, when you accept yourself, you can then forgive yourself, which means to let go of what you are not. But that cannot happen if a being does not know themselves first. So they hold on to the past karma, and they incur new karma out of unconsciousness, thinking, oh, I am just the body, I am the mind, I am this incarnation. You see? And so the cycle continues. And so even after death, as the mind continues on, as this software continues on, it gets passed on. It gets passed on. And it repeats, and it repeats. So this idea that when a being leaves the body, they will somehow be more wise and more conscious is not necessarily true. In most cases, it is not true. In most cases, you've built up such a karmic momentum of attachments, of fears, of desires, of false identification to this world, to what we call this life, to a certain frequency, a certain vibration, that you will have no choice but to be pulled back into that. Just as Many people find in life they can't help themselves but to react in a certain way to a situation. It's compulsive. They can't help but be addicted to something. It's compulsive. That arises out of unconsciousness. Not knowing who one is, not being conscious, not being present in the moment, not able to respond, which is true responsibility, which is the ability to respond. We cannot respond if we are unconscious. We can only respond when we are conscious. So if a being does not become conscious now, it will not become conscious when the body is dropped. They will just then seek to get a new body. And the momentum, that karmic energy, will suck them, pull them in to just get a new body. Or whatever is the greatest match vibrationally to whatever is being held at that karmic memory level. So, if a being wishes to be free, they must use this life well. They must use this incarnation well. If you're listening to this message right now, it means something. You cannot sit here and listen to what I am saying and not have some resonance within you that means you are ready for that. It's not possible. There's something there. Otherwise, you would just not even, these videos would not even exist. There will be no awareness of anybody here that is speaking about this kind of thing. So the fact that there are beings out there that have resonance to actually sit here and listen to what is being said shows that that being is ready for that. But it has to be chosen. There has to be a desire to use this life well, to use it as a way for self-realization and liberation, to find true freedom. And also, through that, being able to be joyful right now, to be able to enjoy this moment, to enjoy life, to truly enjoy life. I don't mean what most people call joy, which is circumstances are going the way I want them to go. No, that's not true joy. That's joy dependent upon circumstances. That means the circumstances control your joy. They control whether you feel good or bad, whether you are up or down. That's what it means to be a slave. That's what it means to be compulsive. That's what it means to be unconscious, reactive, not conscious and responsive. When one is conscious and responsive through self-realization, they find a causeless joy. A causeless joy that's not dependent upon the circumstances. They're not afraid of winning or losing something because they have recognized that is an illusion. There is nothing to win or lose, so now they can enjoy. We can only enjoy when we recognize there is nothing to win or lose. We think there is something to win or lose, we become tense, unhappy, anxious. There is fear and there is stress trying to get to the next moment. And this is how most beings live their life. And then they think at the time of death that will suddenly stop. I wish for as many beings to awaken to this as possible so they don't have to be trapped in these cycles, because that is suffering, that is unhappiness. And nobody needs to be trapped in that. That suffering is not necessary. It is only necessary until it is no longer necessary, which means to wake up. And to wake up means to wake up now. Only now. Only now, not in the future. There is no future. Only now, not when someone leaves the body, because then it is too late and that does not exist right now. Use this life well. Use it well, and then when the time of leaving the body comes, there will be enough consciousness to be able to make one's way back to the source and to act freely.